Mayoral hopeful Zach Goldsmith highlighted the scourge of fly tipping on his latest visit to the borough. The Conservative candidate and MP for Richmond Park since 2010, who is hoping to follow in the footsteps of Boris Johnson as Mayor of London, is trying to drum up support in advance of May's election and believes he can win votes by focusing on environmental issues. Speaking during a stopover at North Enfield Conservative Club in Baker Street last Wednesday, Mr Goldsmith said, "Fly tipping has been raised so many times in Enfield. It is one of those things. It is an issue of civic pride, but it's much more than that. People have raised it with me a huge number of times. In fact, I don't think I've been to Enfield and it hasn't been raised as an issue." Mr Goldsmith believes councils should be given the power to issue offenders with on-the-spot fixed penalty notices rather than having to go through the courts. The revenue from these fines could then be used by Enfield Council to fund extra enforcement officers, said Mr Goldsmith. The Eton-educated son of billionaire Eurosceptic Sir James Goldsmith is squaring off against rivals including Labour's Sadiq Khan on May the 5th. He is also prioritising the protection of green belt land in the run-up to the election, arguing that London's housing crisis can be tackled by building exclusively on brownfield sites and stressing the importance of having access to outdoor space. He explained, "Green spaces are under threat. We need to give them the maximum possible protection in law. Not just greenbelt, but green spaces, metropolitan open land, the works."
The first official public engagement of Stephen Crabb, the new Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, took place in Enfield recently. Mr Crabb, who was appointed to the post after his predecessor Ian Duncan Smith quit over planned disability benefit cuts, joined Employment Minister Priti Patel on a visit to Enfield Job Centre in Windmill Hill. The duo chatted with job seekers and staff at the centre to see how the government's back-to-work support was helping Enfield residents improve their employment prospects and find a job. Since 2010, this government has transformed the welfare system from one that locked far too many people into poverty to one where people are supported into work and gaining financial independence, said Mr Crabb. "I want to build on this excellent work and ensure we have a system that helps people to get the support they need so that they can get back into work and improve their lives and those of their families," he added. Earlier in the day, Ms Patel had given a speech to bosses and entrepreneurs of 60 small and medium-sized enterprises at a meeting of Enfield and Southgate Business Forum at Bush Hill Park Golf Club to explain how the government is trying to boost business. And following the Job Centre visit, the Employment Minister moved on to computer software provider Metaswitch in Church Street, Enfield Town, before meeting the team behind business network organisation Love Your Doorstep to hear more about how the government can support businesses and employers in the borough. She said the latest labour market statistics showed that Enfield's long-term unemployed was at its lowest level since 2009, with the employment rate higher than the London average. Enfield Business Forum has helped play a vital role in maximising the potential of the area's workforce, and I want to see an even closer partnership between the Job Centre and Enfield's employers, she said. By offering work experience, apprenticeships and traineeships, businesses can help attract the talent they need and enable job seekers to get off benefit and into a fulfilling job, she added.
And now this is a letter from Sue Davis of Conway Road, Palmer's Green, who writes about parent governors at schools. Parent governors have no skills. Do Nicky Morgan and the government have a source of information that leads them to this conclusion? Where's their evidence? Who are the governors who have the interests of children at heart? Who are the governors who are prepared to give large amounts of time to the job? Who are the governors who are approachable and able to liaise with other parents and enable the staff to get on with their educational roles? No skills? Then who do they think parent governors are? They have jobs, covering a huge array of skills and coming from a wide variety of backgrounds. They are there to support the school in the best ways possible. They don't form a majority of the governing bodies of schools and so are there in a more supportive and information disseminating role. They have valuable evidence and viewpoints to give in any governing body meeting and sometimes become chairpersons owing to their skills and knowledge. This is a very retrogressive step. Do we really want to return to the days of the 1980s when parents were viewed with great suspicion if they had the temerity to question what went on in a school? I think not, and expect there to be a huge reaction from parents to this insult and deprivation of an important role. We should object as strongly as we can to this devaluation of parent skills.
Spurs fan Irene McBride is still cheering on the players from her seat in the stands at the ripe old age of 101. The great-grandmother regularly attends Tottenham Hotspur's home matches with her family and received a rapturous reception from a packed stadium when she was paraded before the White Hart Lane crowd as the club's oldest season ticket holder. Irene, a resident of Springview Care Home in Crescent Road, Enfield, was presented by legendary Spurs goalkeeper Pat Jennings with a personalised McBride 101 shirt, autographed by the current team, during the half-time interval of Spurs' 3-0 Premier League victory over Bournemouth. Eileen's grandson, Julian Stringle, 51, said, while waiting to be introduced to the supporters, club officials thought it was best if she had a seat rather than stand. So she unwittingly plonked herself down on the touchline seat of Tottenham boss Mauricio Pochettino, who had vacated it minutes earlier. Irene, who first began supporting Spurs back in the 1930s, ranks Jimmy Greaves as her all-time favourite Spurs player, and she met her current hero, striker Harry Kane, by chance in the players' tunnel after being taken on an after-match tour of the ground. He was on his way to do a post-match TV interview and spotted us, and agreed to come back and have his picture taken with her, said Julian, a professional jazz session musician. When he shook her hand, she remarked, "Haven't you got warm hands?" To which he replied, "Because I've been running around." And the little chat he had with her made her day, added Julian. Later, as Irene left the ground, she was mobbed by fans, and even one of the souvenir scarf sellers joined in adorning her with 3 Spurs scarves, which he allowed her to keep. Enfield-born and bred Irene has a seat in the upper tier of the ground's east stand, next to Julian, but climbing several flights of stairs got to be too much for her a few years ago, so the club allows her to use the private lift for its catering staff. She has a long affiliation with the club and personally knew Edmonton-born Jimmy Dimmock, who scored Spurs' winning goal in the 1921 FA Cup final, as well as England international Willie Hall, who played inside forward for the club in the 1930s. They were in digs in Willow Road, Enfield, where Irene and her husband first lived, before the couple moved to nearby Parsonage Gardens. Paying tribute to Irene on behalf of the club, Harry Kane, who had earlier bagged 2 goals, said, "Irene is incredible. To think of her age and she's still here to support us, it's absolutely amazing. It was fantastic to meet her. It's incredible to have that support for so long, and hopefully we'll continue getting wins, and she's here for many, many years to come."
A man appeared in court recently, charged in connection with a fatal road collision in Enfield the previous day. The driver of a van died after it flipped onto its roof in Southbury Road following the collision in the early hours of the morning. The 50-year-old driver, whom police have yet to name, was pronounced dead at the scene. Bugra Burker, 34, of Wentworth Gardens, Palmer's Green, appeared at Highbury Corner Magistrates Court accused of causing death by dangerous driving, perverting the course of justice and failing to stop after a collision. 2 other men, aged 30 and 26, also arrested in connection with the incident, were released with no further action. Detectives from the Serious Collision Investigation Unit are appealing for any witnesses or anyone with information to contact them on 020-8597-4874 or Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111.
The MP for Enfield Southgate is taking on the retail giants in a bid to tighten up sales of knives to youngsters and to reduce knife crime. Conservative MP David Burrows has called for an amendment to the Policing and Crime Bill, proposing a triple lock that would force retailers to make tougher age checks. The triple lock system would mean that online retailers selling knives had to carry out online delivery and follow-up verification checks before completing any sales to establish the age of their customers. It's illegal to deliver a blade of more than 7.62 centimetres, or 3 inches, to anyone under the age of 18. But Mr. Burrows said the law was barely enforced and largely ignored. He said, "Knife crime is a brutal offence which devastates the communities within which it occurs. Enfield has been bruised in this way many times, and I've committed much of my parliamentary and constituency time to increase the number of prosecutions for knife carrying and decrease the number of stabbings. Online sales to children are taking place with fatal and tragic consequences. It's time to bring the knife sales law up to date so we can catch reckless online retailers. I hope that my triple lock will encourage suppliers to seriously consider their part to play in my campaign." Mr. Burrows added that the amendment would also serve the interests of police and protect the public from dangerous knives in the hands of those deemed too young to handle them safely. Mr. Burrows and former Enfield North MP Nick Du Bois successfully campaigned for new crime legislation known as Enfield's Law, which ensured a minimum custodial sentence for those convicted of possessing a knife for a second time. It came into effect in July last year. The Ministry of Justice has confirmed that since the law was implemented, the number of knife possessions offences formally dealt with has increased by 6% on the previous quarter. It was also revealed that 314 more offenders were identified, and 39% of those received an immediate custodial sentence.
More than 70 firefighters battled a major blaze at the Edmonton incinerator plant, which handles Enfield's municipal household rubbish and the waste of 6 other North London boroughs in the early hours of Sunday. The fire broke out at the plant owned and run by London Waste Limited at the London Eco Park in Advent Way at 9:45 p.m. on Saturday. 10 fire engines and crews from Edmonton, Enfield, Chingford, Walthamstow, Tottenham, Woodford, Stoke Newington and Hornsey fire stations dealt with the incident. They fought for 6 hours to control the blaze, which damaged part of the plant and destroyed 500 tons of household waste, which the plant's incinerator would normally have burnt to provide electricity for the national grid. The cause of the fire is being investigated.
A couple celebrating their diamond wedding anniversary claim to have never had a major row. Joan and Mick James of Halstead Gardens, Enfield, were married at St Ignatius Church in Stamford Hill on March 24th, 1956, 60 years ago, aged 20 and 25 respectively. Having lived for 25 years in Phillip Lane, Tottenham, where they raised sons Gary and David, they moved to their current home 33 years ago. When asked about the secrets to a long marriage, Mick, now 85, said, "There are no secrets. I just do as I'm told." Joan, 80, added, "Certainly we have been together in sickness and in health, and through all that time we have never had a proper row. Of course, we might disagree from time to time, but we just haven't ever argued properly. I know friends who do not talk to their husbands and wives for days after a fight, which is something we have never done. Since they met at the Royal Tottenham Ballroom in 1954, the couple have had a happy relationship and enjoyed ballroom dancing as a hobby together for many years. It has not always been peaceful, though, with health problems providing a major test. Mick suffered a stroke 19 years ago, which has left him needing a wheelchair to get around, while Joan has had to undergo a double hip replacement. She said, "That really tested you. It was life-changing, but we came through it." They came out of it stronger and founded a local stroke carers club to allow them to meet more people like themselves at Park Avenue Day Centre once a week. They have received plenty of flowers and cards from well-wishers, but they will be celebrating the anniversary day together with a quiet meal, according to Joan. Just the two of us.
And now another letter, this time from Dame Vera Lynn. And she writes, "It's remarkable that, as her 90th birthday approaches, the Queen is still working so passionately for our country and supporting the work of hundreds of charitable organisations. In recognition of her incredible efforts, I'd like to invite readers to be part of an historic online commemoration at www.thequeensbirthdaybook.com. The Queen's Birthday Book will form a huge digital collection of messages, photos and film to mark Her Majesty's special day on the 21st of April. Anyone can contribute for free by adding their birthday messages and personal stories of meeting the Queen. They can also share photos and videos of their street parties and celebrations for her official birthday in June. One of my own special memories is performing for the Queen and other members of the royal family at Her Majesty's 16th birthday celebrations at Windsor Castle, a night which I hope she remembers as fondly as I do. I do hope people will join me in wishing Her Majesty a very happy 90th birthday by sharing their messages, photos, drawings and videos, while also helping to raise money for some very deserving causes. And just to give you that online address again, it's www.thequeensbirthdaybook, that's all one word, no spaces, thequeensbirthdaybook.com.
And this is another letter, this time from Lorraine Morris, who's the manager at Pets at Home in Enfield. On April the 6th, it becomes law in England and Scotland that all dogs have to be microchipped by the time they are 8 weeks old. Microchipping is an important part of being a responsible pet owner and the most effective way of increasing the chances of missing pets being returned safely to their owners. There are many benefits of microchipping to help owners avoid the heartache of losing a pet, and we want to remind pet owners to come in store and have their dog, rabbit or cat microchipped. The microchipping process, which costs just £10, is similar to getting an injection, with little or no pain experienced. Most pets do not feel it being implanted. The chip is roughly the size of a grain of rice, fits under the pet's skin, and contains information about its owner, making it easier for both to be reunited should they become separated for whatever reason. When a chip is implanted, every pet is given a unique code number, which is stored along with the owner's contact details on a database.
Labour mayoral candidate Sadiq Khan has been outlining his policies on a number of areas. On housing, he believes the next election should coincide with a referendum on house prices, pointing out how people in top jobs cannot afford to live in London. Mr. Khan says the answer is to set up a Homes for Londoners group made up of councillors, housing associations, housing experts and developers, and a London living rent, which will be a third of all average local earnings. He also wants to introduce a London-wide not-for-profit letting agency where rent will only go up by inflation. On where to build houses, Sadiq says we must not build on Greenbelt. There is so much public land available in London, we can have good quality homes in London without building big tower blocks. On libraries, he says, we need to turn libraries into 21st century community hubs, which include things like job clubs. I don't want to see local authorities not consulting residents about what's best for them. On parking, he says, high street shoppers complain when they get tickets, so they don't come back. We need to listen to the concerns the shopkeepers have and get the balance right. I want to be the most pro-business mayor London has ever had. On hospitals, he says, I can't reopen those A&Es that have closed down, but I can be a champion for London and to lobby the Prime Minister to do the right thing. On junior doctors and healthcare professions, he says, when you speak to people who work in the NHS, they are demoralised. Rather than the government being on their side, they seem to be always attacking them. They want someone who will fight their corner. I haven't met a junior doctor who isn't knackered. They do it because they have a passion for public services. On the Millie Hollands Cycle Super Highway scheme, he offers the following comments. The scheme is currently being rolled out in Enfield, where traders are concerned they will lose businesses and disabled people say parking spaces will be gone. Sadiq says, we should be encouraging people to cycle. The idea is a good one, but the way it has been rolled out has not been good. There are some teething problems, but if you're inconvenienced, it's more than a teething problem. The first phase has not been a huge success. We need to learn lessons from the pilot boroughs in Enfield, Waltham Forest and Kingston.
A man who converted replica guns into live-firing weapons by turning his Ponders End home into a firearms factory has been jailed for nearly 11 years. An arsenal of guns and ammunition, which, according to detectives, would almost certainly have ended up in the hands of violent criminals on Britain's streets, was discovered at the home of Rakesh Patel in Alma Road during a police search, as Wood Green Crown Court heard last week. Border Force police officials at a UK airport had intercepted a parcel from the United States last August, addressed to Mr. Patel at his home. The parcel contained an imitation handgun capable of being converted to fire live bullets. On September the 2nd last year, officers from the Metropolitan Police's Trident and Area Command, which targets gang crime, raided his address and searched the premises. There, they uncovered an armoury including a total of 11 firearms, 2 of them capable of firing live rounds and 9 in various stages of conversion. There were also between 50 and 100 rounds of ammunition. Most of the firearms were found in the kitchen. Component parts were also discovered, including barrels of firearms, ball bearings and metal tubing for conversion. Another firearm was found concealed in the garden, and officers also discovered a crop of 12 mature cannabis plants in the front bedroom and the loft. Patel was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment on a variety of gun-related charges last Wednesday, plus an additional 10 months for cultivation of cannabis. There is no doubt that these guns would have ended up in the hands of violent criminals on Britain's streets, said Detective Inspector Rick Stewart from the Trident and Area Crime Command. With the help of Border Force officers, we have closed down this firearms factory, cut out a supply chain of lethal weapons and prevented fatal shootings on the streets of London. This lengthy custodial sentence imposed demonstrates the court's recognition of the harm caused by criminals like Patel.
We've come to the end of our programme for this week. We hope that next week we'll be able to return to a full-length programme. Thank you for listening. So from the team of
Peter, Patricia, Jason
and John, it's bye. Please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the cassette or memory stick into the packet and return it to us as soon as possible in readiness for the next edition. Don't forget you can call Diane de Jersey regarding any help you may require in connection with Enfield Talking Newspaper. The Enfield Talking Newspaper will be with you again in 1 week's time, and I hope will be a little longer.